A sentence I've never ever uttered before, but let's look at what happened over on Barstool today. Do we have that?
But this is now more just like, hey, like, let's get our revenge against the left, these liberal by being bigger. And if they just came out and said that is a revenge guy, is somebody who's petty, I'd say, great, love it. Great. Yeah. I'm with you. Like, that's pathetic. Yeah. It's weird, but they're not doing that. I'm getting the Jerry Callahans and the Matt Walshes of the world and the Mama Kays of the world telling me, like, no, what they did was, we're telling is the truth. What they're doing, and it's like, man, you know, look, I like Trump sometimes. I don't like Trump sometimes. This is frightening.
Oh, come on. We had to bleep the best line. This, Dominic, is this is news because I think it's obvious what an anchor at MSNBC thinks about stifling a comedian. Right now, Ukraine, a country that embodies, fighting for its independence and a democracy, literally fighting to survive, has as its leader a comedian. I mean, comedy is historically of epic importance to a country's sense of self, to who it sees itself as. Is it a strong enough and confident enough and mature enough country to let comedians make fun of its leaders? The answer in America right now is no.
I would say, for lack of a better expression, Nicole, Mark Twain is rolling over in his grave, as is Dorothy Parker. I think that we are in a very dark time here, and I think Oliver put it in the best terms possible. There was a lot of meetings, and Dana Walden had to make a call and tell Jimmy Kimmel this. Now, as we reported at Deadline, there is some hope that they can find a pathway back. Jimmy Kimmel is still hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But it's going to be a hard road because we've seen the repercussions of this. There are protests happening outside the Disney offices in Burbank. There are protests happening on Hollywood Boulevard. Are they massive? No, but they're there. There are people canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions. Are they massive? No, but they're there. The fact of the matter is there's always been a tendency in American life. We saw it with the Smothers Brothers in the 60s. We saw it with Bill Maher in 2002, who got canceled because he said that he could not accept calling the 9/11 terrorists cowards. So he called them terrorists, but not cowards. That, in fact, was how Jimmy Kimmel got his show in 2003 because of that. Irony of ironies, unfortunately. But I do think what we're seeing here is there is a chill. And let's remember, Trump today said Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers are next. And you don't think that that's going to land somewhere with people? We saw this in the 80s. You remember Falwell used to talk about wanting to buy CBS so he could fire Dan Rather? This is a conservative instinct that has been there. It comes up, goes down. Right now, though, it's coming from the White House, and that gives it much more power.
Michael, let me put up some of those other examples. I think you've reported on all of these. The $16 million 60 Minutes settlement, Stephen Colbert's program canceled, Jimmy Kimmel suspended indefinitely, the $15 million defamation settlement from ABC. At the Post, Jeff Bezos has, to put it generously, overhauled the opinion section. He's repelled a lot of stunningly brilliant journalists from that institution. The Times and the Journal, as you mentioned, sued the Wall Street, restricting the Associated Press's access to the pool, I believe, because they refused to rename the Gulf of Mexico. And then this is how he attacked an Australian reporter. I think this is from today. Let me show you this.
That is inappropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
So this isn't just our problem. I mean, he is seeking to chill journalism around the world as an extortion tactic for good diplomatic relations with their governments.
Well, I zoom out and look at the way that in this term, President Trump has been incredibly efficient and you have to say clever at finding these obscure levers of government to really enact immense pressure on his political enemies. And I count cutting federal research funds from private universities, going after private white shoe law firms by threatening their ability to work with the government. I mean, these were not tactics we saw in the first term Trump. He railed against all these organizations, but what the difference is, he now is wielding these levers of government against them. And everything we're seeing now with the media, Brendan Carr, the chair of the FCC, is often talking about broadcast licenses. Now, this is really sort of an obscure part of the bureaucracy in America. I mean, this is about broadcast networks need a federal license to operate their business because of the nature of public airwaves. But FCC chairs have never used that in a punitive way. In fact, his predecessor, Jessica Rosen-Worcel, was very clear that it was not the place of the FCC to police content, to police the political views of programming when it comes to these licenses. What we're seeing with Trump and his administration is a willingness to just shatter these norms, to be quite brazen, as it were, in going after their enemies. And I'm kind of waiting to see. I mean, there was outrage in Hollywood. There was outrage from Democratic lawmakers about what happened last night. But I am curious what the recourse will be. The Democrats don't have power in either House of Congress. They could haul in Brendan Carr for a hearing, but the truth is his power is really rather unchecked in this regard. So I'm sort of curious to see, what are the challenges that emerge out of this?
Well, I admire your curiosity. I think most people with the platform feel something different. I mean, they feel the fear of a dying democracy. I think if this isn't as closely associated, the reason the press is in the First Amendment is because the founders found it not among the vital freedoms to have a democracy, but the most important one. And I think watching what happens next is all of our job. But I think understanding that it may be a clever deployment of tactics, but it's also all been written down and shared publicly in Project 2025. I mean, this was the plan. This was on paper. This is what he ran on. And the folks that are in the most, humiliated postures today are all the free speech warriors who thought there was something for them in the second Trump presidency.
We also often think about what's happening next. Let's see how the story evolves. Let's think about what's happened already.
Right, it's happened.
Right? It's already happened.
We're here.
It's already happened. Like the comedians are being thrown off the air.
Right.
The tech overlords are bowing before Donald Trump.
Right.
The news organizations, at the very least, there's an incredible chill going through every single one of them. It's happening. Our democracy is being eroded before our eyes.
Right.
If this was a foreign country, we would be a lot more clear-eyed about what's going on. I think, honestly, they're probably looking at America like, that democracy is rapidly slipping away.
Yeah.
And so I understand the temptation to see how the story evolves,
right.
And hopefully it doesn't get any darker, although I fear it will.
Yeah.
But where we are right now is a very, very dark place.
Say more about that, because I think there's this adaptive human trait to follow the facts, see where they lead. There's also a denial in that. I mean, they have led to this. 2 of the 3 late night hosts are gone.
And we haven't even thought about Jon Stewart, who has his contract expiring in a few months. And, when I was over at the Paramount press conference, asked them if they were going to renew him, and there was no answer. And so I think it's very possible in a year that Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Kimmel, 3 of the big comedians who are critical, who Neil Trump could be off of the air. And again, that's what Donald Trump wants, and he's getting exactly what he wants. He's getting the ability to eliminate criticism, to scrub it off of the air, and he's doing it through a variety of ways, whether it's lawsuits against the New York Times, lawsuits against the Wall Street Journal, threats of lawsuits, threats of bureaucrat action from the FCC, threatening law firms. He is getting what he wants, which is the ability to operate more freely without criticism and honestly, to some extent, in the shadows, because when comedians stop pointing out what he's doing, when news organizations stop reporting on him the same way, he gets to operate a lot more freely.
Dominic, what are you seeing in terms of signs of life, of people waking up from sort of the sleepwalking that's gone on for most of the last 9 months?
Well, Nicole, I'm going to talk about 2 leading men. One, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, who clearly wrote, if Brendan Carr wrote the Project 2025 portions on media, this overall dash towards authoritarianism was, a lot of it was in a blueprint from what's happened in Hungary. Another leading man I'll bring up, and I brought him up before on the show, is President Barack Obama, who today spoke out in perhaps the strongest terms he has since Trump returned to office about what's happening in relation to Jimmy Kimmel. And I think there lies an opportunity, because I think that there is a lot of talk about, if you have a Jimmy Kimmel alienates one half of America and a Megyn Kelly alienates another, or something like that. In actual fact, I don't think that's true. I think people disagree on particular things. I think extremists always disagree on everything. But I think there is a potential here for people to say, as the Barstool guys did, which is, hey, enough's enough. This is not what we were talking about. And I think in that, President Obama is someone who can really take the lead here. Be interesting to also see what Stephen Colbert does tonight. Stephen Colbert got pink slipped by Paramount CBS, but he's on the air actually until mid-2026. And the recent Emmy winner is certainly going to take every opportunity possible. And then, of course, there's another thing that I would look at, and you guys might laugh at me about this, but I will talk about Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, who both lost their jobs in mainstream media for very different reasons, and now blossom in non-traditional. Perhaps that is the place for Colbert. Perhaps that is the place for Jimmy Kimmel. These are guys who cut their chops in the clubs. Maybe it's time to get a little punk rock and hardcore about it and take it back to that, because in many ways we know in a cord-cutting universe that is a new leg of media, and it's becoming incredibly strong. So perhaps don't fight them where they think the battle is. Create a new battlefield.
Yeah, I love that. I'll read as we go to break President Obama's statement on the Kimmel News. Quote, after years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators. It doesn't like